Welcome to the Top 10 Gardener with Master Gardener Ken Lain. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and top 10 advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome your garden host, Ken Lain.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week talking about the landscapes of Northern Arizona. And well, fall is done, okay, in Arizona at least. Autumn's kind of the last of the leaves, so I've got a couple leaves left on my maples, but it's not many. The Bradford pears, the ornamental pears, actually the fruiting pears, they look pretty good for another next windstorm. And then it's going to be officially winter. So this is when your evergreens really take front stage. And so this is when 20%, that's what designers plan when doing a design in your yard. 20% of your landscape should be dedicated to evergreens, so that when everything else is deciduous, that is, they lose their leaves, you don't look naked, you don't look bare, you don't look like a lunar landscape, like this. What happened? Did they forget to plant out there all winter long? Your evergreens, your spruce, your pine, your red tip photinias, your native mahonias and silverberries, manzanitas, your hollies on the north side, yews. These are all the evergreen plants. There's lots of them. In fact, the garden center is filled with them because they look good this time of year. And folks are coming in, they want to have something, hollies by the front door. That screams holidays. It's perfect. And so we have a bunch of hollies. So lots of evergreens are in now. But if you get that wrong, you'd be going, oh, what happened? This just feels like there's not enough here. And so you come home and it's like, you got nothing to hang your lights on. So the Lain Casa has got their lights are up and they're on. So I'm kind of excited for Christmas this year. So one thing you should watch right now. So if you've got a pond, if you've got fountains, if you've got water running out in the yard as a decor piece, you really don't want those to freeze. And so I haven't seen ice forming on top of the pond. We've got an active pond. It's pretty sizable. It's a waterfall, kind of comes up, goes to the garden. You can hear it throughout the backyard. The birds love it. And so, but one thing I do is keep the leaves out of the skimmer. That's a number one thing. So I did put a skimmer into my pond just because the debris gets so thick. And I really don't want to muck the thing out every other year. So the skimmer just takes all that debris, sucks it up, and I just have to dump it out. It's pretty full this time of year. The other one that you really have to watch, you do not want your pond to freeze solid across the top of that water feature. It's detrimental to fish because what happens is any debris that gets down in there underneath that ice, let's say leaves, just all the muck, all the dust that's happened over the season, as that gets trapped underneath that ice layer, it can kill your fish. There's some toxic things that happen, and they kind of, you'll see them they just will disappear. They died over the winter because they were underneath that ice layer, being slowly poisoned as things composted at the bottom of the pond. And so what I do is I throw a pond heater. It's an easy thing. I've got mine. It looks like a floating rock of all things. There's different types. There's cattle types. There's some that are very industrial, throw it in there in the stock tank and it'll keep things from freezing. What it does is at about 35, 36 degrees, it activates and turns on. So there's a thermostat inside this floating pond heater. And so it just keeps a hole open. It doesn't keep the water. You're not going to take a hot tub. It's not like 103 degrees in your spa. This is just barely enough to keep that section of the pond from freezing. So for me, what I've learned, because I've gone through a couple sub-zero winters in my gardens. This is in Prescott, Arizona. About every 10 years, we get this crazy cold event that we're not used to. We're used to teens. That's normal. Single digits, we'll dip there for a day and maybe pop back up. But to go sub-zero, that's really cold. Now, you folks in the White Mountains, Flagstaff, you Williams, you're used to, you weaklings, you don't know what cold is. You should be out there in your ski gear and go down the hills. And no, There's a reason I don't live in Flagstaff. I go up there to ski, but I don't want to live there in that cold. It gets too cold. I like it here where it's, we get cold in 20s. I've seen 22 already in the backyard, and that's pretty comfortable. I enjoy that. Once you go down another 20 degrees, you're getting into low single digits. It's not fun. So I live here in Prescott, Arizona. When it gets really cold like that, that ice will just solid right over there. It can actually form where the grandkids can walk across it. It gets that thick, but if that ice gets too thick, it can actually start to freeze the pump motor. So I've got a waterfall. So I've got a 1-horse waterfall pump. And 1 year, it's happened once. I learned, I'm a slow learner. I figured it out though. The pond froze. I didn't have my pond heater, and that ice affected my waterfall pump, and it cost me $1,000 pump. That is not fun. So I put the pond heater out there. They're very inexpensive. You can get them from Amazon, any eBay, any place will have those. Any Cal Ranch, Olson's Grain, all your feed stores, they'll have those because there's a traditional stock tank. You can't have the ice. The cattle don't want their ice. Horses don't want their water iced over. You keep it open, just a hole. And it allows all the toxic gases that build up underneath that ice for the fish, keeps them from being poisoned. It keeps your motors, the pond pump, from being frozen. And it just good health, helps lets the birds into the water. So there's a lot of, kind of watch that one. Make sure you same thing, winterize everything. And so I've taken home some bags of mulch, and I've thrown them on top of my irrigation valve. So in the ground, you've got a box. I just take home a bag. There's the best insulator ever is dirt. And I'm going to use some next year anyway. So it's either manure, potting soil, mulch. Taking one of my bags I'm going to use next spring. And I take those home and I put them now on top of my irrigation box. So it keeps those valves in the ground from freezing. If we get a harsh winter, that can happen. And that's a very, very expensive part. So because you're not just replacing one valve, you have to rebuild the entire manifold. It's going to cost you, it's going to be a $500 bill to get that done. One $10 bag of exotic potting soil. You're going to need to grow tomatoes and geraniums next year. Could prevent that from happening. So it's just easy insurance that just kind of guarantees you're not going to have problems over the winter. So already I'm seeing I had a backflow preventer go out. So your irrigation, so it was protected, but it was old. It's 20 years old. It finally gave way, started to spring a leak. So I'm going to have to replace a backflow preventer. That's many times you'll see a green bag in the yard. It's sitting there over top of a plumbing piece, comes out of the ground, comes from your irrigation box, comes up about a foot. That's a big old brass piece. And then it goes right back in the ground. And what that does, a backflow preventer, if there's a reduction of pressure from your city or whoever your provider is, it'll prevent your water from your irrigation getting sucked back into the city drinking water. That's a great device. It does keep us all healthier. But they're also prone to freezing and breaking or getting old and just giving out in this case. So kind of keep that thing from freezing, because the part itself, that big brass piece, it's like a $200 bill. Then you need to hire a plumber to go put it in for you. So you just don't want those things freeze. That's where your heat tape, the big green insulated bags will take the pressure off. Anyway, that's some things you should watch. Watch your pond. That's one that's easy to forget because you're inside now and you go, oh, it's been running. You're enjoying sunsets through the autumn. Go, no, I love the pond out here. And now it's gotten cold. You're inside sipping a few more cups of tea, baking cookies already. And you've just forgot that it was out there. Don't do that. It's bad for your wallet, bad for your fish, and bad for your pump motor. So lots in store for you. I've got Lisa Watersline coming in with your garden questions right after this. Be right back. For luxurious evergreens in the yard, look no further than Waters.
We have a luscious selection of evergreens that look their best in winter, so you can enjoy a beautiful landscape no matter the cold.
Locally grown for stunning appearance and ability to thrive in cold weather.
Perfect for that touch of luxury your neighbors are sure to be jealous of.
Luxurious evergreens at Waters Garden Center in Prescott and watersgardencenter.com.
Your one-stop shop for evergreens. Visit us today. You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join his daily podcast for timely garden advice seasonally right for the gardens. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott or through his website at top10gardener.com. You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain and the Top 10 Gardener podcast. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show.
And we are back with Lisa Waters Lain in the studio. She comes each week with your garden questions. Just what are your neighbors asking? What are they thinking about? What's going on in their yards or their homes or their gardens? And so we try to share that and impart those over the airwaves of, well, the Southwest. So actually anymore, we've got listeners in New Zealand, England.
Why?
It's Spotify and Apple. You gotta love those two. They make us famous on the
Are
internet.
we that entertaining?
No business like show business like no business. Maybe we shouldn't sing. Maybe we should just impart some garden advice. So,
how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, I don't know. I was with my girlfriend, and she and I had a great time. How was your?
Mine was very quiet. Kidding. We went to Texas.
We went to together, just so those that it's first time they tuned in. We're married for like ever. We're in a business together forever. We're business partners, radio hosts, forever.
So we went to Texas because 3 of our 4 children live there. Yeah. So we thought we'll go to them, which was so much fun. We ate, and then we ate some more, and then we went swimming, and then we ate some more. So it was a great time.
Yeah, went to some museums, kind of had the kids interact with some stuff, played some football, did all the traditional
swimming,
Thanksgiving stuff.
We even had family pictures taken because it had been a long time. Yeah. Yes.
I think the last time we had them they were church photos. Like the kids were tiny.
The directory.
I think we were like 30.
Yeah. So it was time. So that'll be fun to see.
It will.
It was good.
Yeah. Great time. I would do it again. So what we do is we like getting together. It's just as the families disperse across the country, it's harder to get together. And so we usually buy a very nice We rent a nice Airbnb or VBRO house, and it's got to have a pool.
Yes.
I've had that every
One
time.
Requirement.
And it's got to be big because there's multiple families. So usually a 4 or 5 bedroom house, and it's just a hoot. Everyone lands, and just the food comes out, and the games start being played, and it is fun.
So they have a Jenga game now. Jenga is where you pull the wood blocks out and whoever makes it fall. Anyways, our son was playing with his son, and they have this new one that's actually shocks you. So it plays this music, and you have to pick your piece and move it before time. There's a certain time allotment. And if you don't move it, it will shock you. They're like, yeah, you want to play? And I said, there's not a chance in the world I'm going to play that game. Thank you very much.
Those with heart issues or pacemakers, not a game for you.
But it was fun watching them.
It was fun watching all the
Both
kids
of them
going.
getting shocked. So it was
Farkle, all kinds of games. All kinds of games. So we're game people. Okay, so that's enough of our Thanksgiving because everyone's going, but let me share about mine. Really, it's about gardening. They're tuned in for teach me something. I want to grow better plants. How do I get rid of gophers? Are
you done?
No. Once I go into those voices, no.
I know. So Jeff is in Prescott. He has a very natural native yard. He has yuccas and bear grass and just native grass, things like that in his yard. His landscaper recommends cutting everything back. And he wants to know, do you cut back those native things? The bear grass, the yuccas, what do you do with them?
Yeah.
And but since they are so native, his other question is, do I really need to worry about watering through the wintertime?
Yeah. So if it's truly native, no, you probably don't have to water. it'll keep them healthy if you give them a spot. You spit on them every once in a while, but if they're planted, that is, you bought them from a nursery, put them in the ground, especially if they're newer, it is beneficial to water them. Now, going back to his landscaper, pruning, how to cut them back. This is a blunder that a lot of new landscape maintenance folks do. They whack them, they treat them like grass. It's a bare grass, but it's not truly a grass. It's not like pampas grass that you cut back. It's not like deer grass that you come back. Zebra grass, you cut that back. Fescue, you cut that back. But bare grass, you don't. It looks like a yucca. And the flower in it, it's like a white flower that kind of hovers across, gets about hip high, and it grows wild out in those valley areas. So Paulden, Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, Dewey, all those, that huge valley areas, and lower. It goes down the Cottonwood, Camp Verde, Sedona areas. You'll see this tall grass about hip high and has white flowers on it. You prune back the flower, and that's it. The grass, if you were to treat it like grass and cut it back to like ankle high, it would take years. If it didn't kill it, it would take years to recover. Don't let your landscapers do that to you. Same with yucca. Yucca is not a grass. It has this grass look to it, and the flowers can come up. There are different types of yuccas. There's lots of them, lots of native ones. So from banana yuccas to red yuccas, you prune back the flower, and that's it. You don't prune back the foliage. You keep it intact. You might fertilize it when they're done, so that'll bring out even more flowers next spring. You get bigger, stronger, brighter flowers. If you care for it at all, it will be healthier. But don't let them prune back. It'll take years to recover from that. Agaves, first of all, they're going to bite you because they got these thorns on them. So you generally don't want to get too close to an agave, or the other name is century plant. But you don't prune those things back. They would probably die if you did that. There might be some pups come off the side, but natives, you generally give them a haircut, maybe. And that's it.
That's the beauty of natives.
That's a beauty of natives.
Very low maintenance.
So Elaeagnus, some of your bigger, your evergreen kind of native evergreen, so tassel, manzanita, you might just shape them so they don't get kind of wild looking. If you want to keep them more formal, or if you like that wild look, let them go. That's their natural form. So there you go, Jeff. You now informed.
Okay. Next question is from Jan in Prescott Valley. She says where she used to live, it had much warmer winters, and she would buy several amaryllis bulbs, grow them in the house for Christmas, and then she would put them outside. Her question is, can she do that in our area?
Yeah, and Jan, so no. There you go. Amaryllis is a tropical. So if that bulb freezes, so the ground is going to freeze some here in the mountains of Arizona. She where was she at? Prescott Valley. So your ground is going to freeze. You're going to get a frost line, probably just a few inches deep. It's not very deep out there, but some. And if that bulb freezes, it is vapor. It turns to black mush in the ground, rots, and dies. So that's more of a Phoenix. Southern California. I'm guessing you're from the more tropical, that's New Orleans, the places where they don't freeze. There you can grow those outdoors. Here, not so much. Now, you can grow outdoors narcissus or daffodils is the other name. Paperwhites. Those will grow outdoors pretty well. So there's a couple different varieties, but there's quite a few of them that will grow outdoors. Tulips, chrysanthemums. That's not a bulb. We're talking bulbs anyway. Trying to go through.
You got distracted,
crocus.
didn't you?
Crocus. What are the other hyacinth? Those are all your spring blooming bulbs. Those are in the ground and they're fine. They don't freeze. But not so much with amaryllis.
Right.
Probably keep them indoors.
Yep.
Or just go, I liked them, they were good, and throw them in the trash. They're not meant to be forever plant. Poinsettias are meant to be a season, and they're meant to be like throw away.
True. All right, one more question. I think we have time. Robert and Chino put in a row of Arizona cypress, which he was assured it was still okay to plant.
Oh, yeah.
His question is now, because they are young, newly planted, how frequent does he need to water those?
Oh, that's good. Robert, good question. So new plants, good for you. You'll love that you planted those now. next spring when you get all that flush of growth. Whereas everyone else that waited,
Mhm.
they're going to plant theirs and they're just going to sit there all year until the following spring. So you're going to get a season ahead of things. Now, they're new, so their roots have not they've started to form, but they haven't elongated dramatically into the surrounding landscape. You'll need to water those probably a couple times a month. Not probably. You will need to, Robert, listen to me. Twice a month, give it a deep soak, like take a hand, water by hand if you need, take the hose out. A couple times. If we get a serious snowstorm, I'm talking like a foot of snow or 12 inches of snow, you can maybe cut one of those out. That is so rare around here. You just don't see that very often. But twice a month, a deep soak will keep them very healthy, very happy, and you'll get better growth next spring with that. So with that, we are out of time. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners. Be right back after this. Waters Garden companion plants for November are Vanderwolf pine, flowering pear, English ivy, and camellias.
Ice Angel camellias produce amazing 3-inch rosy blossoms with petals that radiate out from the center of.
Camellias deserve front yard status or admired on a patio or deck.
Well adapted to acidic soils beneath oaks, native junipers, and maples.
Loves shade gardens, containers, and raised beds.
Shop in-store or online at watersgardencenter.com. You're listening to Ken Lain, aka the Top 10 Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Family Garden Center. Listen daily as he answers the top 10 questions of the week, streaming on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Garden Show with garden expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation daily as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Or visit face-to-face throughout the week where he can be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
A mistake that new folks, especially from the deserts or the Southern California areas, make when they first move to a 4-season climate. That is, they're up here in God's country. We've got spring, summer, fall, winter, whereas the deserts only have summer, followed by summer, more summer, and then they kind of have a spring season in January, but it never gets cold. Southern California, it's just the perfect weather all the time. It's tropical. Hawaii, it's beautiful all the time, but you don't have 4 seasons. And so there they grow poinsettias, Christmas cactus, all these holiday plants outdoors year round. And so they come here, and I've had this happen with several customers that are kind of new. It's for you folks in the Midwest and East Coast, bear with me. I just don't want our friends, our fellow gardeners, to make a mistake that I've seen before. You already know what to do. They're not going to live outdoors. Poinsettias are tropical plants. That is, they are actually developed. They were found by, I don't know the exact story, a colonel, some famous person whose name was Poinsettia, Colonel Poinsettia, or Poinsett. I think that's what it was, Poinsett. He was a botanist too. So he traveled the world in the new world, went down to Mexico and found this poinsettia. He went, this is a great plant. And he started taking cuttings, taking them back, and he introduced that several hundred years ago to the planet. It's from tropical Mexico. It's not from Wisconsin, that's for sure. It's not from Europe. It's from a tropical climate. And so those plants they have zero, I mean, just like no antifreeze in them. If you look at them cold, they get droopy and weary and going, oh, I just need a parka, please turn up the heat. They're very tropical. So that's another thing to watch. You do not want to buy a poinsettia that's ever been cold, because once they get chilled, they never warm back up. And they always have this weepy, droopy look to them. And so you never want to go to the grocery store and buy that big display right by the front door, where every time someone comes in for groceries, the doors open and there's poinsettias getting blistering cold. They never perform well. And so they start losing leaves, they turn yellow, they look wilty, they just aren't. So all of ours, we don't even let ours at the garden center. We're so sensitive to this. We don't even let them touch the ground because cold air settles on the ground. We keep them up off the ground on purpose to keep them in the warmer part of the room. Same at your house. Don't let them be by the front door where guests are coming back and forth. You're going to have the Christmas party and you need some holiday plants. It makes sense. You don't want them by the front door unless you're just willing to write them off. Go, it's $10. It's all right. I want red up there. It's fine. Christmas cactus are not quite as finicky, but still, they're tropical plants. They don't like the cold. And so you want to keep them warm. The opposite is true. So you put them in the house and your furnace is kicking on all the time. You got the fireplace, the pellet stove, whatever your heat source is, they're going and going. Don't put them right next to the pellet stove. They're going to get too hot, get crispy, and dry out too fast. Don't put them right over a heater registry. They're going to get too hot, dry out too fast. They like to be just like you and I. They like, if you're comfortable in that part of the room, so will your holiday plants. That's Christmas cactus, amaryllis, cyclamens, all those holiday, obviously poinsettias. They are tropical plants. They're just like you and I. If you're outdoors, how are you going to fare at 2:00 in the morning in December in the mountains of Arizona? You're probably going to freeze to death if you don't have a parka or something else on. Well, so will your poinsettias, because they're just like people. If you're indoors sitting, having a cup of tea, watching TV in the living room, and you're comfortable, so will your holiday plants. They're going to love that. And see, these are tropical plants, like houseplants. And so they don't have any kind of defense against the cold like a spruce tree or a holly. These guys, they would hate to be indoors. They like to be outdoors because they're used to that cold climate. They want to be chilled. They need time to rest and hibernate and kind of take on the environment. That's why they're so pretty out there. They're just gorgeous. There's nothing prettier than a blue spruce, a Alberta spruce, a Austrian pine. These holiday evergreens that are outdoors. Put some decorative lights on them. They just scream, "I'm ready for the holidays." It's part of that's part of the fun. We have lots of living Christmas trees. You can use them indoors for a bit, and then no more than 2 weeks, really. And then we want you to take them outside again. A Colorado spruce, that Albert spruce, Oregon green pine, all these outdoor plants. Use them for a couple weeks indoors as a Christmas tree, holiday tree. Take them back outdoors and plant them. They want to be outdoors. They like the cold. The opposite for your poinsettias. I've had several customers over the decades of doing this. I've sold thousands of poinsettias in my lifetime. They take them and put them outdoors and they just freeze. Now, down in Phoenix, you can get away with that. It's tropical. Southern California, you're fine. They grow outdoors as a landscape plant, but not here when it gets really cold. They don't really like to be below 40 degrees. Anyway, that's poinsettias and holiday plants, how to take care of them in your outdoors. Be right back. Water's garden companion plants for November are flowering pear, English ivy, camellias, and Vanderwolf pine.
Vanderwolf is related to Arizona pines with fluffy foliage.
It's remarkably resilient in dry Arizona soils.
Makes a graceful specimen in yards or expansive estate landscapes.
This distinctive pine, long, twisted, silver blue needles covering the dense branches.
Carefree and easy to grow.
Shop by store or online at watersgardencenter.com.
The Top 10 Gardener, your source for timely garden advice, seasonally correct for the garden, guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And we are back with Lisa Waters Lain in the studio. She comes each week. We just give this segment to her so she can impart a different voice, a prettier voice, brighter voice, smarter voice in the garden advice. It's just not me droning on and on for the whole show. So plus I like hanging out with you. Plus, I like hanging out with my gal in a small studio. It's just like special.
It is.
Really?
Sure.
What do you like most about it?
I knew. I was like, this won't end here. I know that.
Welcome to the studio again this week.
Thank you. We're finally getting some colder weather. We had a
Finally.
beautiful fall. I
Yeah.
know it's not winter yet, but
It is in
yeah,
2
it was
weeks.
just gorgeous. But it's nice to have the change in seasons.
very much.
I like that.
Yep. So I've started. It finally got cold enough. I think the bugs. I've seen a couple box elder bugs. Haven't seen anything else really out there. I think they're kind of trying to survive from the cold. So I think it's safe to go out and start cleaning, pruning, changing, grooming. If you feel like you want to go outside and prune, go ahead. I think we're safe enough, at least at the higher elevations. Actually, that's past Black Canyon City. Go for it. Cottonwood, go for it. Sedona, go for it. Paulden, Skull Valley, you're all good. Go for it. It's cold enough. Really, we wait until the cold takes out all the insect stuff. The trees, the sap will slow down. And so when you make a cut, they don't bleed, they don't attract bugs, you have less issues. So we kind of start in December, the new year, somewhere in there. And then you got until March to really clean things up. So
get started.
Yeah. Well, yeah, something.
I'm talking to people, not you.
Yeah.
I know you already did. But with this cooler weather, and now it's like officially December.
Yes.
It's time to start thinking Christmas and Christmas decorations. And
the music, the crew they were anxious. They really wanted to put Christmas music on at the store. Like, let's wait till after Thanksgiving. They couldn't stand it. They flipped it on like the few days before Thanksgiving because they're ready for it to happen.
They are. And then the week before Christmas, they'll be going, I'm tired.
Can't we have a different station? Going to program 7 of them. You've got 7 different stations.
And there's so much Christmas music out there now. It's kind of crazy. But with Christmas comes the plants of Christmas. So we mainly think of poinsettias and Christmas cactus, amaryllis, paper whites, those kind of things for indoors. Because in our environment, they are definitely indoor plants.
Yeah.
This is not Southern Cal or Phoenix or where you can put those things outside. So poinsettia, I'm going to show the Christmas cactus first. I was trying to find one in bloom. We've sold so many.
As soon as they bloom, they sell.
I brought this one because they had one bloom that was ready to go. But that's great because you're going to get to be able to enjoy all these blooms at your house instead of here. So Christmas cactus bloom for an incredibly long period of time.
This is truly where it pays to be tuned in through Spotify or Apple because they're doing the video version of this. Everyone else, you get the MP3 or the audio piece. We're trying to describe it over the airwaves so you can visualize a Christmas cactus. Is it truly a cactus?
It is not.
Yeah. What is it? Why do they call it a Christmas cactus?
That's a good question. I'll research that for next week.
There we go. Love it.
But it's not a true cactus. It's like a slumbergia.
I think of it as a succulent. So it doesn't have thorns. It's soft.
No, it's soft.
The leaves have it's just like a succulent. So
yeah. And the other one is poinsettias, of course.
Yay! Boy, you brought an exotic one. My goodness.
This one I think is the crystal ice or ice crystal one. It's has a red on the outside, white on the inside. So it's a variegated blossom. This one's coming home to our house.
Yay!
Because I just love the colors on it. I think it's very different. It's nice and light, but the traditional red, but they come up with so many colors now, variation.
It's so fun playing with cameras.
It's so fun. But have you ever wondered why? Why do we use poinsettias at Christmas?
I would really like to know why we use poinsettias during the holidays.
So the legend it's a Mexican legend because that's where these are from, Central America,
right
Southern,
yeah.
So there was a little girl named Pepita.
Yeah.
They were going to church for the Christmas Eve, the nativity scenes, the festivities, that kind of stuff, and she didn't have a gift to bring the baby Jesus. So she was very upset that she didn't have a gift, and her cousin said, baby Jesus doesn't care. He just wants you there to enjoy and be happy, but she was very sad. So on the way to the festival, she picked some weeds and she laid them at the nativity in front of the baby Jesus.
That is very
cool. And then the miracle was that they turned bright red and beautiful.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's the Mexican part.
Yeah.
part of why we have poinsettias. But how did they come to America?
How did they come to America?
Well, let me tell you. It was in the 1800s. Our first ambassador to Mexico, his name was Joel Robert Poinsett.
Yeah, there we go.
And he brought them back to the States, but they weren't very popular, especially for Christmas. People were, they liked it. It was something different. That's when, a lot of new introductions were formed because people were traveling more and bringing stuff back. And it was a cool plant to have, but it wasn't really associated with Christmas until, you know who Paul Eckey is?
Oh, yeah.
So Eckey Poinsettias, Paul Eckey and that family.
I've met Paul before. He's passed, but his family's now taken it over.
Right.
But I've met Paul personally. He's introduced
most
of the poinsettias we know today.
Right. So he was big into poinsettias, right? So he came, this is something you would come up with. He came up with the idea, how do you make them popular, right? So he took them to all the TV studio stations throughout the country, donated to them to like the Tonight Show.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Hope Christmas specials. So he just kept pushing all these free poinsettias.
Yeah.
Like, here, take the poinsettias. They're free. So people started associating them with Christmas because that's when they would always show up, is at the holidays. And that's how they just kind of started becoming part of our Christmas traditions, is to have the poinsettia.
The Eckey family is very famous.
Yes, they are.
In the plant world. If you're a plant botanist at all, they're the ones.
Mm-hmm.
And their family's now taking it over. But Paul, that would have been the 70s, 80s, I would think. That's about the time frame. Late 60s.
Late 60s.
Yeah, that's when his peak
started.
time.
It took a while to build that up, where people were like, oh yeah, poinsettias.
Yeah.
And of course, the first ones were always the red.
Yeah.
Traditional, but now they come in white. They come in the crystal ice, like I showed you. They have one called Country Quilt, which is red with white blotches on it. There's a burgundy one, which is a really dark red. There's pinks, you name it. But if you see a blue one, it's been painted.
I know, that's just so
wrong. Not real. Drives me nuts when I see that.
Or I saw multicolored. I was at a box store.
We were at HEB in Texas.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not real.
They just take paint and they just paint it. That's all they did.
Use florist paint on
now,
it.
how often should you water? How are you going to take this one home? How are you going to care for that in your house? How do you water especially if it's got a sleeve on it, a decorative sleeve that maybe doesn't breathe?
What I usually do is poke holes in the sleeves because I do want it to breathe, but I make sure I put a saucer under it because I don't want to ruin my wooden furniture that I'm setting it on. I usually water about once a week.
Okay.
It's going to depend a little bit on your home. They're grown in very peat mossy kind of soil, so it can dry out quickly, especially if your home is warm.
Yeah.
So, but usually once a week, and when you water it, you want to use warm or tepid water. Don't go throwing cold water on it.
They don't like cold, any cold air, cold water. They don't like cold.
Not be happy with that.
Yeah, I like warm.
A bright room, but no sun directly on it, or you will get some burning on the leaves.
Yeah.
But actually very easy to take care of. And a lot of people, I'm not one of those, but they actually like to keep them from year to year, which I think is crazy because there is a time when they start looking ugly.
Yeah.
And
there's an ugly phase to poinsettias.
It's not like we can grow them outside here, so there's really no point in keeping them. But I do toss mine soon after Christmas, but they stay lovely well past Christmas if you want to keep it going. Main thing is don't overwater them. They don't like that. Yeah. And then use that warm water. Very important.
That's where that sleeve can sometimes be a detriment. It's pretty, it's decorative, it's holiday-ish. Usually I'll have a matching foiled sleeve, but then it doesn't breathe. Then you water it and it sits there in water and the things
I usually pull
leaves.
it out of the sleeve to water it as well and just kind of do it in the sink. And then the other thing is don't put it by your front door because it won't be happy there.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Poinsettias, Christmas cactus, and other holiday plants, and the history behind them. Thank you for sharing that. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners. Be right back after this.
Your yard will turn heads with stunning evergreen shrubs from Waters Garden Center.
Waters grows greener shrubs for year-round interest, as well as blooming shrubs for pops of color in spring.
Attract birds with a tall privacy hedge and the berries that follow.
Plus, winter evergreens are easier to grow than other plants.
No matter your landscape, we have the perfect shrubs for a greener winter.
Visit Waters Garden Center in Prescott or online at watersgardencenter.com.
You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Additional shows of this podcast, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook, Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show with Ken Lain. Listen to Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts guaranteed to make your gardens more beautiful than ever this year. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So you folks from the Midwest, the eastern parts of the country, colder climates, so Minnesotas, the Ohio's, the Connecticut's, the Maryland's, you're used to fall is for planting. The best time to plant trees is in the autumn. Now's the time. It's the same here. So we are very much like that. So we can get cold. We've got definite 4 seasons. And so this is a very good time to plant, autumn. With that being said, we're so mild. This is the mildest 4-season climate you'll find in the country, and still have all the wildflowers, all the lilacs, spring bloomings. These things need 4 seasons to really thrive and shine and show off. And we've got it. The beauty of having a milder winter is you can plant year round. So we don't have 8-foot frost lines like Wisconsin, which you can't dig. It's impossible. Here we can. And so the ground never truly freezes solid. So you can keep planting. What that does for us is now we can buy an evergreen. Let's say you've got a new house and I need to add to the landscape, or man, the leaves dropped off my maples, the aspens, and now it just looks terrible. I need something out there. You can easily, and it's a tradition that's been happening for decades. People will buy a evergreen tree, let's say a spruce tree, a pine tree. I even sold one last week. I sold a fruit tree to a customer. They want a fruit tree. They're going to use it as a Christmas tree, basically, and then they're going to go plant it afterwards. So it gets interesting what people use, but traditionally, pine, spruce, fir, junipers, all your traditional evergreen plants, they are brought indoors, used for the presents underneath them or whatever your holiday tradition is. And then when it's all done, they bring them back outdoors and they plant them, and they will thrive. They'll do just fine with that. You are allowed to plant. We plant year round because it's so mild. So landscapers are going to be installing landscapes right through winter. And so it'll be kind of a mix of more evergreeny kind of things, because the landscapes, I mean, we've basically filled the garden center up with evergreen kind of stuff. Yeah, we might be able to find a lilac for you, but those are coming in January. We start to bring the spring bloomers in after the holidays are over. So right now it's focused on holiday plants. So that's going to be your Colorado spruce. Or if it says spruce, many times if it's got a name, we've got Baccarat spruce, baby blue spruce, Alberta spruce. What they are, they're all cousins, but they have different looks to them. Might be a little shorter, squattier, fuller, thicker, more shapely, more layered, more blue, more green. But spruce tree do really, really well up here. Of course, we've got Spruce Mountain you could walk to right here in Prescott, Arizona, and then all the ridge lines have spruce on them. So you know they're going to thrive. Same with the pine trees. We have the largest grove of ponderosa pines in the world. So it's right here. It goes right through here. And so you know this is the place for pine trees. And so Austrian pines, Bosnian pines, if it has a pine in it, you're probably good to go. Go ahead and plant those. And it's fine to plant them when it's cool out. It's fine. If you're going to use them as a holiday tree, though, you can bring it in to celebrate and open presents and do your traditional family thing. We recommend don't bring them indoors more than 2 weeks at most. These are outdoor plants. They like to be cold. And what happens is when you bring them indoors, they start to activate. They're going, oh, must be spring. I'm going to start pushing off new growth now. It's time to wake up. So the sap starts flowing and they start to wake up. You don't want them waking up. And so you want to keep them in their dormant stage. If it's a large spruce tree, a large pine tree, large big spruce or a juniper, fruit tree. If it's going to be large, they dry out faster. They wake up faster. So they really shouldn't be in the indoors more than 7-10 days, something like that. So the bigger they are, the shorter distance time they should be indoors because they start to wake up. Also, they don't like the warmth. They don't want to be 68 degrees in your living room. They want to be 20 degrees outdoors at night. That's what they're happy with. That's what they're used to. And so when they're in there, they dry out kind of quickly if they're indoors. So keep them away from your registries, from that furnace draft. Keep them away from the fireplace, from the pellet stove. Keep them out where it's cooler. Keep the room a little cooler. Add a humidifier. But you can do this. You can have a living tree. It's not cut. So if a tree's got no roots, it's dead. I don't care. You'll hear all kinds of myths of people going, "Oh, you can go dig a hole and it'll root out for you." That's a lie. That's the internet. You can't believe everything that you read. So, but if it's got a root to it, it can live, especially if it's for this elevation, this climate. So you can have those Austrian pines, Oregon green pines. You can have baby blue spruce, Alberta spruce. I talked to my daughter. She lives in an apartment. She's on the fast track for a retailer out in Texas. And I go, "Honey, you don't need a big Christmas tree. You don't need a artificial tree. Baggage to schlep around with you from apartment to apartment as you open up new stores. Just why don't you get a small living Christmas tree, put it on a table, enjoy it, have the fest, dress it up, and then you can donate it to someone, or it's small enough, you can just throw it away. Think of it like a poinsettia. Just use it for the season. And these are not puppy dogs. These are just plants. They don't realize their time is done. So you can just use it for a season and be done. But go with smaller, less investment, easier. And she goes, "That's a great idea. I'm going to do that." And so that's for us. If you need more landscaping out in the yard, I need to block my neighbors. They are in my face. The houses are too close here. Every time I sit on the back patio and watch a sunset, they're eating dinner right there, and we look at each other. Plant a tree. That's perfect place for a pine tree. Perfect place for fast-growing Colorado spruce. Perfect place for junipers. So put something out there, use it for the holiday, and then go plant it. We've got a handout that'll show you exactly how to do it. It's basically dig the hole wide, dig it not that deep, add a bag of mulch, and water it a couple times a month. That's it. There's a transition period. If you're bringing it from outdoors to indoors, you kind of want to keep it next to your house or under a patio, or bring it outdoors so it gets used to the cold. But let it adjust, let it acclimate. So we do it. So it takes a few days for it to acclimate back to the cold, and you keep it there for maybe 5-7 days. Then you go plant it. If you don't want to use it indoors, just go plant it and decorate it. Enjoy it. Put a Santa and sleigh out there and just enjoy the holidays. So this is when your evergreens, if you don't have enough of them, you know it, because those deciduous plants, a birch tree, it's lost its leaves. The raywood ash totally looks, you hardly see it out there. So now is this is a good time to spot, where do I need more evergreens? That's a good time to plant it. It's a good time to design, where do I put those in? But we do see a definite moving away from cut Christmas trees and then moving towards living Christmas trees. We used to sell a couple thousand cut Christmas trees back in the 90s, early 2000s, when it was really popular. It's kind of lost its favor. There's some sustainability issues. People just don't want the hassle. They don't want the fire hazard. And quite honestly, the Chinese plastic trees have taken over. But if you need more landscape, try a living tree. It really does work. We've got families that have had on their 10th or 15th. It's like, oh, there they are again. They're going to do another tree. Do you have enough room for all these? So you can do this. So living Christmas trees, there's a way to make them thrive and grow. And you're going to set the stage for next spring's burst of new growth. It's a great time to plant living evergreen trees now for next spring's fabulous new growth. Okay, we got more in store for you. Don't go anywhere. Be right back right after this.
Grow extraordinary succulents and cactus indoors.
Water succulents are easy with lots of shapes, sizes, and colors.
Whether you're looking for a small cactus for an office desk or a huge statement succulent in your living room, we have the perfect plant.
But what are you waiting for? Extraordinary succulents and cactus await you at Waters.
Visit Waters Garden Center in Prescott today or watersgardencenter.com to find the perfect succulent for your home and office. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Thanks for tuning in to the Top 10 Garden Show. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So to be fair, so Lisa had mentioned the history of poinsettias, where they came from, how we got into the holidays, the first our Mexican ancestry of poinsettias. It's a deep, rich heritage of holiday plants. How Paul Ecke, the developer of poinsettias, introduced them, and then she said throw them away. She was kind of brutal. It's like anti-gardening. So I thought I would just share with you real quick, if you want to keep your poinsettia for the year, how to get it back into bloom, how to get it to come back into color. And there's a trick to it. So now poinsettias, they're like houseplants. So they like to stay in that 65, 80 degree weather. They like regular moisture. You fertilize them. A good fertilizer is whatever you're using for your houseplants, especially African violet orchid mixes. They like that kind of food. Just fertilize them, feed them with that. I would say if you got African violets, it's a natural. Give them that food in the spring and again in summer. The secret is starting in September, you want to lower the temperature just a touch. So instead of 65, 70 degrees, go to the lower end, 65 degrees in a cool bedroom would be perfect. Turn the vent off out back there. Starting in September or mid-September, somewhere in there. So autumn, start to lower the temperature. And here's the insider tip. Poinsettias need 12 hours, the magic number, 12 hours of uninterrupted darkness. They need that, even if it's in a room that has lights coming on and off, that will affect it. That will keep it from turning red or burgundy or white, whatever your poinsettia color is. The secret is the 12 hours. So it's perfect in a back bedroom that no one's staying in, with a bright room. Bright window, not direct. No, poinsettias don't like sun directly on them. They like indirect, bright rooms. That's their favorite place. But when in mid-September, lower the temperature and give them uninterrupted, like darkness. Don't turn the lights on. If you need to, put them in the closet for the evening. Put them to bed out there. Don't let the light get to them. And then starting about first part of December, sometime just after Thanksgiving, they'll color up, they'll go into bloom, and they just naturally start doing their thing again. That's kind of the insider tip on how to get that plant to come back. So traditionally, if you don't do that, it'll just be a pretty green plant. They can get tall and leggy. If the plant actually gets too big, you can reset it in spring. You just cut it back. I mean, just brutally back to about 6 inches. Then fertilize it, and it will come back and it'll be bushy and full again. So the poinsettias need to be reset, much like other plants. They like to be pruned on, otherwise they get too big, too full, they just get too much. They're really easy to reset. Cut them back to 6 inches, fertilize them with African violet food, put them in a room that's now warmer, and they'll start to flush out with new growth starting in September. Cool that room temperature down, and then give them uninterrupted 12 hours. I mean, in the greenhouse, I had a heater go down once, a greenhouse full of poinsettias. Heater went down. I went in with a ladder, I'm fixing it in the middle of this full house of poinsettias. And you could see where we had the shop light on to fix this heater in the middle of the night. We couldn't let it go cool because they're tropical. I had to fix this thing. So I should have done something. I don't know. You could see this halo effect where those poinsettias, they did not color up as well as the ones further out in the house. So any amount of light keeps them from coloring back up. And so you can keep a poinsettia year round, have it come back and trick it into going back. If you want more info on that, go to watersgardencenter.com and the learn button at the top. There's a how to grow holiday plants. There's Christmas cactus, the whole things. All right, that's it for this show. Thanks for tuning in.
Look, if your wife, mom, or dad wants an ugly sweater for Christmas, get them a sweater, not some piece of plastic.
But if someone you truly care about loves their garden, a gift card to Waters makes perfect sense.
Next spring, she can pick exactly what she was hoping.
We all know it's not the same as a huge flower basket or fragrant rose, but hey, it's winter. Gardeners understand.
Waters online gift cards are found at top10plants.com or at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.